first part. So I'll briefly go into why video cases and why video cases in IB to set the stage for our discussion. So I think that if we look at today's classroom, the students have always gotten younger, in my opinion, as compared to myself. Of course, that's not true. It's just me getting older. But still, I think it's important to realize that things are changing, and that it's important as a lecturer also to change with the changing times. Traditional materials are actually not very rich or appropriate for this new type of student. And when we look at, for instance, the Gen Z student, they are much more focused on visuals, on online videos, on online streaming, etc. As you can see here, and this has only gotten worse or more pronounced, if you like, since the pandemic. So I think that it's also important to realize that, in my opinion, the genie is out of the bottle since the pandemic. So, before lecturers could still rely, let's say, on previous materials, on previous MOs, but we were actually forced to change our MO. And now students have seen that, people are capable, lecturers are capable of changing if they have to. So I think that, to be honest, the genie is out of the bottle and you can't put it back anymore. But honestly, it's not just a student. I think that also teachers are shifting more and more as a result of faculties and universities and business schools offering more and more online classes, which is, of course, again, warped because of the pandemic. But traditional materials are, let's say, getting less and less used in favor of, let's say, more updated and more digital resources. And I think that video cases is a good example, among others, of course, of materials that and resources that fit better or perfectly, one could argue, to online hybrid lecturing, but also, to be honest, with face-to-face lectures, more so than we would perhaps like to admit. But this is, let's say, more general. If you look at IB in particular, I think that IB is a very good example of things which are very difficult to learn just by reading and talking about things. Sometimes you have to see things, you have to experience things, you have to live things. So, I took this from, cross-cultural management, but also, let's say, from Back to the Future. When students can actually see what managers do in real life and how they make a decision, it's actually much better for them to learn and to know how things are done in real life. Written cases can, of course, assist in this regard, but I think that video cases are much more lively and much more close to students' real life and also personal experience, to show them how companies make decisions and why. So that's why I think that, particularly in IB, video cases can be a very good teaching tool. Okay, so that's a little bit as a background, but of course, let's go into much more detail about the specifics of what makes video cases better or worse than paper-based cases or than no cases at all. So the first question that we will be focusing on is, are video cases better than paper-based cases, and are they better at storytelling? So we have developed for you a poll. So perhaps you should be seeing the poll right now. You should be able to answer. So hopefully you can just indicate briefly what your point of view is. No need to make it too easy for us. Yes. Okay, almost done. Yes, 30 seconds, so that's okay. Let's just see what the opinion is. Are you seeing share results? Yes. So this is, are you seeing this? Okay, so 2/3 of from say that the video cases probably are, work pretty well in lectures, while some 1/3 still think that paper-based cases are actually better at doing this. But it's good to see that most of you are convinced of the usefulness of cases, as nobody seems to dislike them. Okay, good. So let's then move forward and give the floor to Nukhet, who will first give the pro arguments in favor of, let's say, video cases and storytelling. Nukhet.
Thanks, Philip. It seems as if I will be talking to already converted crowd, but all the same. Actually, I am a firm believer in learning from textbooks, and I do believe in reading materials. But we are also aware, all of us are aware, that today's students are actually, it's getting harder to reach them via textbook only. Therefore, we need to be, as lecturers, also need to think of alternative ways of reaching students, teaching them according to the styles, to their learning styles. And this brings us to the use of video cases as an efficient new teaching tool. To answer your question, yes, definitely video cases should be in our agenda. And picking up from Glinsky and Lawson's opening sentence, I also believe that case writing is in many ways storytelling with a didactic purpose. But whether we're talking about written cases or video cases, we should actually be thinking about having elements of conflict, some sort of friction in those video cases. Because if we have some sort of suspense in the case, then we know that students will be more engaged and we will be talking to them directly, and they will be with us until the end of the case, whether it be written case or a video case. And so the second element that I need to mention in regard to cases, especially in regard to video cases, is the power of narration. Especially in video cases, I think they've got an upper hand in this respect because there is a narrator, a storyteller from the very start of the video case until the very end. So that helps also students in following up the case instead of just reading through it and trying to stick to it until the end. If I can elaborate probably a little bit more, as we know, video cases are watched, so that gives another upper hand. And they also motivate the active listening skills of students, which is very important, especially in business life. And we know that written cases are of course, good for reading comprehension, but it's a little bit harder. The second point is, as I've mentioned earlier, the power of narration. Video cases are very good storytellers. They're born as storytellers. So again, we do not put too much pressure on the students to be able to digest the material. That's another plus. The third plus, which is probably again from student perspective is a great big bonus, is that students do not need to spend extra time preparing for the lectures if lectures are being conducted via video cases, because they can just come to the class and they can, with the help of the lecture, they can start watching the video and then pause the video and have a discussion. This actually makes video cases much more inclusive in the lecture halls, because even if students switch off for a while in the class, they can switch on again and then again continue with the class discussion wherever they left it off. The fourth point is that video cases are based on real life examples. They talk about a real problem and a solution. Sometimes video cases are written in a very neat way and they do not show the messiness, how messy the business world is. And sometimes written cases can be fictitious, whereas with video cases, they have to be real life examples. Video cases are also much more focused, as we've tried to see in Philip's example. They actually should be talking about a specific problem that the company faced and how they solved it. So they will be relating to a single chapter in a textbook. Whereas with written cases, we know that sometimes they can be talking about different sections of a textbook. Therefore, it takes a while to dig out the actual information that will be used in that specific lecture. As we've said, the lecture, we see video cases as being used at the center of the lecture, as the centerpiece of the lecture. Lectures should start with a video case from the very start, and then and throughout the lecture, it can be built upon using the video case. And at the end of the lecturer can actually, with the help of knowledge clips, sum it up, and relate the case to theory. Therefore, it just gives more power to the lecturer by engaging students from the very start. The last point is that video cases can also be used in company trainings, company staff trainings, which is also a plus. And we know that usually written cases are not used by companies because it requires special skills to be able to use them. They're harder to use than video cases, let me put it that way. So, Your Honor, I rest my case, and I believe that it is in today's world, it's not possible to teach without video cases.
Thank you,
I'll
Nukhet.
give the floor to Andreja for the cons.
Yes, thank you, Nukhet. Those are some very good arguments, to be honest, quite balanced, but still, very, very nice. Andreja.
Yeah, thank you. So a minority is with me, but I'll try to emphasize why actually there are some advantages of written cases. And of course, the most important is the reading skills. So there are many advantages of reading and good reading habits, such as brain connectivity, concentration, and comprehension. And indeed, in IB, theories and concepts that are new to the student actually require deep thinking. So sometimes even thinking in different ways. So this goes usually easier with written information, and the students are actually more used to paper-based cases. So concepts, key elements, the relations are often preferred to be seen in written forms, right? And the students need time to reread, to combine quick scanning and actually detailed reading. And this allows the students to process information with their own speed, which actually may result in better understanding, right? And we actually know that reading is a more complex task for a human brain rather than watching videos, for example, and it does straighten brain connections and build new connections. So it does improve also concentration and comprehension, which is all necessary for IB students, right? Next, I would emphasize the development of practical skills. We know that IB practitioners really need to be skilled in many different disciplines, in many different tasks, right? So written cases have value for development of practical skills. Some skills, for example, financial management, risk management, taking data and assessment actually are really well done, can be really well done with written cases, right? And actually the evaluations of business environment and all these examples that I mentioned actually where facts and figures are extremely important, they are essential, and written form may speed up this processing of this information, right? You hardly practice hedging with, for example, without writing down and making and practicing and using Blackboard even on the lectures, right? So the watching may reduce and even the making notes, which is still important. So it's also true that actually hyperproduction of videos may reduce their value, or at least the hyperproduction increased variation of their quality. So it seems, and also the students may say this, that actually watching videos and looking for information may be very time consuming, right? You get lost easily and you lose more time. The videos are often too long. They're not always relevant, they're not always clear and focused, and actually even videos may not be real. They may be directed, or sometimes students don't feel that they are real, right? And the last but not least, actually going back to storytelling, storytelling, I think it does not depend on the medium itself. It's a skill per se and a technique per se, and might be missing either in written cases or in video cases. So the danger with video cases is actually that they rob the students of their own imagination, and also creativity and the possibility to visualize the problem and solution on their own. We all those who are using written cases, we are aware actually how often we find very unique and very original solutions in classrooms when we use written cases. So I think that actually reading is a very personal experience and actually can stimulate creativity and also develop imagination. So I will stop here with this question.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Some good points also. Again, it's true, we sometimes say that the current student has the attention span of a fish, but I've actually been told recently that the attention span of a fish is actually quite long, much longer than is being put forward in daily life. So true, we should perhaps not give in too easily to new students. But let's perhaps hear from the students. Matt.
Thank you very much. So far you've heard kind of the pros and the cons more from the instructor's perspective, and I will be trying to approach it more from a student perspective. And again, to kind of refresh, I will be looking at two kind of extreme groups of students: the ones that are really engaged and see value in the use of video cases, and the ones that are not. So in terms of the pro view, we have to understand, and as Filip very illustratively pointed out, the students keep getting younger every year. So we are dealing with the TikTok, YouTube generation that is used to consuming information through video. So that is kind of their natural environment. And in a post-pandemic world, it seems that we are all turning into Generation Z, not young people, but Generation Zoom. So this is kind of their natural habitat. What I've observed among students is, and if you look at how students actually look at videos, very often they would accelerate the speed of the video to 1.5 times or 2 times or even 3 times. We as lecturers, sometimes when we're evaluating student videos, might be doing the same. Video cases actually allow students greater control over the pace of the learning. They can pause the video, they can repeat it, they can accelerate it. It's also important to note that video cases appear to be much more inclusive for disabled students. And if there is a silver lining in this whole COVID-19 pandemic and being pushed into the online spaces, that the disability students have really kind of come back to us and said that they feel much more included now. Things like closed captioning, even students that do not have disabilities but might be not native English speakers tend to report that closed captioning services are very, very beneficial. It's important to also understand that we have different types of learning styles among our students, that some students might be more visual, some students might be more audio, some students might be more socially oriented. So the video case format kind of caters, in my opinion, to myriad different learning styles. And it's important to approach students not as this uniform group, but there is huge diversity in terms of learning styles of students. One of the things that I do in my own teaching is, at the beginning, we always kind of do a survey in terms of the learning style, so that I have an understanding what is the composition of the cohort. IB as a discipline is all about context, right? IB as a discipline is all about places, companies, and people. And this is sometimes hard to convey just over text. And video has that show-how component, right? Not just the know-how, but also the show-how component. And it's able to convey much more of that contextual richness. On the other side, the kind of more conservative student group, one could argue that video cases are at the end of the day still cases. They are kind of subjected to the same types of rules in terms of cases. You know, this kind of, some call it the cookie cutter approach to cases. You know, there is attention and the storytelling logic. And some students simply don't buy into this or don't like this type of learning. So at the end of the day, many of the drawbacks of using cases could also be kind of transferred to video cases as well. Now, if IB is all about context and people and places, this will mostly mean that we will be, you know, including in videos people that are from different backgrounds, people that might have very heavy accents, people that you know, come from different creeds and walks of life. And this might sometimes be really, really hard for non-native speakers to follow up, especially if there's not closed captioning. Some videos can be still quite passive. So unfortunately, very often when we look at video cases, there is still just the audio and the visual component. People that are being interviewed or speak in those cases are not always most engaging. They're not used to being presenters. In most cases, they're sitting down, which brings about a completely different energy. So this actionability in a video case can vary substantially. Andrea has pointed out some really important points, is that with a video case, students cannot highlight or make notes. And they also cannot have those notes in front for class discussion. So there are definitely benefits and as well as limitations to using video cases from a student perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Perhaps I'll read out aloud one of the remarks made by one of the attendees, Kuniko Muchimaru. Thank you for that. So the quote, the question says, or the remark says, for the students who have not experienced any business scene, the picture they see in the video is new, so they can imagine the real business world, especially those in different countries. So that's actually also a very good point. Thank you for that. It's true that many of our students, at least also mine, do not come from business life. They come, you know, they're still quite young. And so it's true that it's actually a good point to go with Matt's points. That's a very balanced point of view. So thank you for that. So if you have any further remarks or questions, please go ahead and type them in the Q&A. Okay. So I think that at the end we came to a fairly balanced viewpoint. So let's now move ahead to the second question. So, can contemporary online IB lectures be without video cases at all? Can lectures be enhanced perhaps by the use of video cases? So I think that we have a second poll for you now. Let me launch this one. Okay, so you have 30 seconds. Can you conduct an online IB lecture without using any video cases during the session? Okay. The results are, I think, more balanced this time around. So we'll have an open debate. A few more seconds. Yes, thank you. And polling, I'll share the results. Okay, so as you can see here, it's fairly even. So the jury is still out. Can we do without video cases? Yes or no? So please have the arguments ready. You need to convince people, yes or no, what the answer should be. Okay. So again, let's move again with the same order. Let's start with Nukhet, who has the pros ready for you.
Right. As you can imagine, I do not believe that it is possible to run contemporary lecturing these days without using video cases, especially after COVID-19. I guess we would all believe, or we have seen, observed personally, that the importance of video cases have risen considerably. I would like to mention here, refer to a state of art paper that was written by Glinsky and Lawson just many years or few years before COVID. In this state of art paper, they are actually looking at the learning attributes that are delivered by digital cases and trying to elaborate those learning attributes. I've taken 3 of those here and would like to relate it to COVID incidents and how these attributes actually increased in importance after COVID. The first one that they're talking about with video cases, if you use video cases, you're actually simulating real life decision making, like one of our participants mentioned earlier. Under COVID, we've actually seen when we were all away and locked in our own houses, away from the real world, actually the video cases were even more helpful in simulating real life decision making, which we were not able to convey in any other way. The second attribute to video cases, looking at the literature, is that they show multiple perspectives and ambiguities of the business world. Again, after COVID, actually, we were all in our own living rooms, in the comfort. We were all in the comfort of our own living rooms. Yet, with the help of video cases, we were able to show the ambiguities of the business world to our students as if, you know, they were there in their own living rooms. So that was another plus for video cases. The third point is the co-creation of learning content and higher interaction via video cases. If I'm going to relate this to COVID experience, again, we have seen that video cases can be very helpful in using online teaching, hybrid teaching, synchronous or asynchronous teaching, and they can be equally efficiently used under different teaching modes. All this actually makes me believe that it is not possible to run a class these days without the help of audio and video material. And also research indicates that digital cases reduce the cognitive load versus written cases, which is also again cited as one of the pluses of video cases, which I would repeat has been enhanced, especially after or during COVID. We go to the next chart. I'll try to elaborate a little bit about why we should be using video cases for online teaching. Lietka, in her article, which was written something like 20 years ago, with a far sight, was talking about classrooms becoming virtual worlds. I think this is very important because it actually sheds light to our day today, because in her article, as I said, written 20 years ago, she was talking about use of video cases for verbal interaction on the screen and classrooms, which would enhance the role of the lecturers, because lecturers would be able to play these video cases, pause them, have a class interaction, which would be increasing student engagement as well. So following from footsteps, I think we've come a long way. And in these 20 years, we have seen, as I said before, also COVID, we've seen the pluses of video cases. And we could actually tell that the world was moving in this direction. We all know that with the use of video cases, teaching experience can be replicated across time and in multiple places. And also, as I've mentioned earlier, they help with real world contextualization, because in a world where we are not able to do that physically, video cases actually enables us to bring different concepts into the classroom in a live manner. If I'm going to look at the use of video cases in IB, if you can click, maybe, Philip.
Yes.
If I'm going to look at use of video cases specifically in IB, we know that teaching by doing is very important in IB, because most often students may not be aware of the concepts that is being taught in IB. And therefore showing those concepts or conceptualizing those ideas could be crucial, even more crucial in IB. Therefore, we need real life examples. That's probably why our textbooks, all our textbooks, start with a written opening case as well, in order to be able to help students by giving them an example first, and then trying to explain the theory behind those examples. So again, in that respect, video cases play a crucial role, and I believe that they are here to stay with us. Last point is in regard to bridging the gap between business life and academia. Again, we know that there is a lot of controversy around business studies teaching, and whether or not what is taught in universities today is relevant for the business world. Again, in that respect, I believe that video cases play a crucial role because they are showing real life examples, and they are teaching, in a way, helping us to teach international business with the help of what is being lived through in business life. Therefore, both students, businesses, as well as universities should benefit from the use of video cases in IB teaching. I'll stop there and leave the floor.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. Some very good points. Andreja, you'll have your work cut out.
Thank you, Nukhet. Thank you, Philip. Yes, actually, I can easily contradict to the first question. So most of IB lectures today are still without video cases, and our survey demonstrated that, right? We launched our first survey in 2018, and actually there was only about 7% of lectures using video cases. We launched it again last year in 2020, and there was still just slightly above 40%, about 45, 46% of lectures using video cases. So majority, at least last year, is still majority of lecturers do not use video lectures still. So I think even the business IB today can be done without videos and lectures as well. So moving on to the arguments, actually, I would firstly emphasize the increased Zoom time and the Zoom fatigue that we all know very well from the last 2 years, right? The average screen time increased significantly over the last 2 years, and this became one of the key students' problem, even for concentration and for comprehension and engagement, right? And watching videos may really reduce this engagement and interaction. And interaction is exactly the key IB competence. So lectures should be increasingly used to enhance interaction, to really speed up communication, especially if we have a mixed groups, as we often do have in IB classes, right? So this watching videos at home is actually not always a good substitute, and according to experience, actually this interaction may be missing, and this is a very important part of IB lectures. So simulation, direct engagement may be cut off due to the videos. Next, I would like to emphasize that actually video cases may worsen the reading habits, and these reading habits and collecting information from context is extreme, from written context is extremely important. I mean, can you imagine an IB professional today without good reading habits? I mean, in every new task, an IB professional should learn about the culture, literature, new context actually, and not everything is on video. So learning habits are extremely important, and actually we should stimulate these learning habits, especially with new generations that are coming with less developed reading habits, right? Next, I would also emphasize that there are plenty substitutes to videos, right? Including artificial intelligence. podcasts and online visits, live visits. I mean, we as teachers, we all have plenty of different tools, and actually videos is not the only media. And in reality as well, IB is going on, business is going on through diverse interaction, through emails and texting most likely. So videos and films are also part of it, but certainly reading is extremely important. And with regard to accessibility, I mean, Matt mentioned before that actually videos may be more inclusive, but on the other hand, they may be also exclusive, because some students still do not have access to the latest technology and all what we need to watch videos. So the pandemic actually showed this, that the gap between those digitalized and with access to good technology and those who do not have it have widened. And lastly, I would emphasize actually the problem of takeaways. Actually, words on page are less elusive than other means of assessing information. And it's still a question how much of a video content can we retain. And even if we talk to students, if we just, can you imagine your students asking you at the end of lecture, what should we read? What should we watch? I think they would be very confused if you would just say as a lecturer, watch that and that videos. They are still used to get the page numbers, which has to be studied carefully and learned and understood, and that might be another problem for students. And actually, I'm not so sure what are the takeaways from videos always. So let me stop here.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Some good points. Although I sometimes feel that if all you ever do is all you ever did, then all you ever get is all you ever got. So I think that sometimes, you know, you have to get out of your comfort zone. And it's true that students also have to do this, but I think that the barrier might be a little bit against the lecturers that you know often fall back on past experience. But it's true also students should perhaps do this. So Matt, over to you with regard to the students themselves.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Andrea for making such a strong case. I'm a little bit mindful of time, so I will cut my part short and maybe just tease out a couple of points. Kind of the main point for the pro student group is that unfortunately today nobody really reads. When you talk to students and when you sit down with them and when you have an honest conversation, I like to go and work at the library at least one day a week to kind of be amongst the students and to kind of pick up, and to observe, how do they approach information and learning and so on. And what I can see is in 95% of the cases, they have a laptop and they're using some sort of video. Even those that do read, they tend not to print. So printing has become environmentally not very friendly. It's become expensive. Students are on a budget, particularly in countries where they have to pay hefty tuition fees. New Zealand is one such example. So even if we're talking about paper-based cases, the majority of students just has them as a PDF on the screen. So that kind of screen fatigue is very much apparent, whether it's a video case or a printed PDF case. The other thing is also cost, whereas videos are more often free. Paper-based cases, particularly if it's your quintessential Harvard or Ivy cases, still need to be purchased. On the con side, as Andrea rightfully pointed out, not all students are technology rich. And even in developed countries, like, for example, New Zealand, because of geography, you have a lot of students that might be in rural areas where access to broadband of sufficient capacity is still an issue. Now, For students, from a student point of perspective, what they usually do with a written case is they start Googling, and very often they would come across actually the teaching note or somebody else that has answered the questions associated with the case, particularly if it's a Harvard case or an Ivy case. And with video cases, they cannot do that. Now, if you're a lecturer, that is great. But if you are a student, I can imagine that it might be a little bit unnerving. Last but not least is the issue with infrastructure and various platforms. And having joined this Zoom-in session at the beginning, we also had some issues around voice and so on. So it's not as easy to embed that in Zoom, MS Teams, Panopto, or so on. And unfortunately, audio-video infrastructure in classrooms might be poor. Yes, we might have a projector, we might have a screen. Our speakers are maybe not that strong, or we might not have blinds and there's too much sunlight. So sometimes playing the videos, particularly in a classroom, the environment itself might not be that conducive. So I will stop here in the interest of time.
Okay, thank you, Matt. True, those are all barriers that we have to deal with. So I think that we again came to some sort of balanced point of view. Let's move to the last question, and Matt is right, we have 15 minutes left, so please stick to the time allotted to you. So the third question is perhaps a little bit more controversial. Can IB curriculum be covered fully by using video cases only? So no need for textbooks. We can substitute this by video cases and knowledge clips. Yeah, I'll launch the poll and continue with my explanation. So launched poll. Let's see what you guys think. So again, I think coming back to our video case libraries, both Brands Whispering and MNC Whispering, they can be used as standalone video cases, but of course can also be still used in relationship to an existing textbook that you might have. So let's see what people say. 2 more seconds. Yes, and share. So also here, no is almost 3/4 of the answers. So Nukhet, this time you will have a difficult time convincing people. Yeah, stop share. Okay, and off to you.
Yes, I'll try to do my job properly and quickly. I mean, in order to be able to answer and to convince the audience, I'll show you 2 examples that are up and live. One is brandswhispering.com, and it is a series of video cases that was developed by my company for marketing, as I've said earlier, in 2016. As you can see, when you go to the web page, this is exactly the same as the table of contents of our internationally accepted marketing textbook. But as you can see, each and every chapter is covered with the help of a video case. For example, if you want to talk about creating a new brand in that specific lecture, you can click on Ford Trucks case, and it would actually tell you about a specific case that Ford Trucks have faced, and how they had to delist one of their brands because it was a flop in the marketplace, as open as that, and how they had to come up with a new brand and the stages that they went through. So this is how it can be done, and the whole curriculum can actually be covered with the help of starting the lectures with a video case and then tying it up with the textbook information. At the moment, we've got 13 video cases in Brands Whispering collection, and they're all being globally distributed by the case centers. And we've got something like 41 teaching materials related with these cases. They include also written cases of these video cases in order to be able to help lecturers and students, as well as some teaching notes. The second one that I would like to mention is multinationals whispering, which we've mentioned earlier, but I'll again briefly go over it. This was a project, Erasmus Plus project, started 3 years ago. We are coming to the end of it. And there are 4 universities that are taking part in it, one being Catholic University of Leuven in Belgium, and another one is University of Ljubljana from Slovenia. The third one is University of Leeds from the UK. Fourth one is University of Poznan for Business and Economics from Poland. And my company, Elize UK, is taking part in it as a UK SME, bringing in previous knowledge, technical knowledge. Again, the whole idea is very similar to Brands Whispering idea. You see a textbook, IB, a typical IB textbook with chapters. And all throughout these 3 years, through the 5 partners, we've been trying to produce video cases, and that would be covering each one of these titles, one of these chapters in a IB textbook. Very soon we will be putting our video cases from 4 different countries. Some are SMEs, some are big international companies, but they will all be with the help of these different examples. We hope that we will be able to show our attendees that it is possible to run a whole IB case or a marketing case or in general business studies with the help of video cases. I'll stop there for the sake of using time effectively and let Andrea pick it up from there.
Yes, Andrea.
Okay, let me quickly summarize that actually we cannot still imagine the IB lectures without a textbook. I mean, and most of lectures cannot imagine without a textbook, without a clear structure, without a comprehensive overview. I mean, that's a huge revolution, right? So rather than actually avoiding textbook, so although we do find weaknesses in every textbooks, actually we cannot imagine doing without it. And actually, instead of avoiding, we rather combine chapters from different textbooks. And actually, the publishers are really user-friendly or lecturer-friendly in this regard. So textbooks today are more developed, they're going on, and new generation of textbooks are better. So rather than using just a textbook, we actually prefer, and both students and lecturers prefer, a wealth of these different teaching resources, right? So I think textbooks and written cases and the rest of material will be part of key ingredients in IB teaching, and business reports and strategies in reality still do get printed, and or at least they are in ebook, right? So they are not in video form yet, at least not yet, right? Actually, I'd also like to emphasize that video contents and courses based exclusively on video are not necessarily more interactive and engaging, right? So despite this new trend where everything is turned into digital content, and this is not always more engaging. You can gain watching, but you may lose learning as well. So I would, for the end, I would just emphasize that actually video cases require a different way of teaching. So it's not the same way. Along with new video material, along with this digitalization, it's not just the technology that you need, but actually you need new different pedagogic experience to take the students to the next level. So it's not just video. Learning is still important, and our surveys and pilot studies demonstrate it.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea. Perhaps I'll read out loud before going to Matt a remark by Maria Ilieva. I use many videos and some video cases in my classes. Students answer to questions on assignments with videos with more enthusiasm compared to written cases, but it is beneficial to include text too. CNBC has very nice cases, not only on companies, but on topics too. For example, equal pay for equal work in connection to gender equality. So thank you, Maria, for that feedback. It's true. I agree that video cases can liven up things, especially with the new generation of students. textbooks sometimes have video cases, but to be honest, not very good ones. So video cases need to be improved. And I think that some of the textbooks right now are trying to do that. So the new versions, I think that the latest version IB book by Buckley, Enderwick, and Voss will include some proper video cases rather than this paper-based case with some extra videos to it. So also it's good to hear, Maria, that indeed others are enjoying it also. And then we come to the student point of view. Matt, over to you.
Thank you very much. And a big shout out to Maria Ilieva from Osaka. I'm really glad because in your comment, there was one word that really stood out for me, and that is assessment. If I can go to the contra side in the interest of time, what we see with students is students are very assessment oriented, right? So in their thinking is in terms of classifying whether something is important or not important, for them, the key criteria is this linked to assessment? And unfortunately, what we see very often in our teaching, yes, we use cases either as written cases or as video cases, but these are not linked directly to assessment. Whereas, for example, for take-home exams, we sometimes give out cases and we give them 24 hours to analyze the case and then submit the report. I've not yet seen that with the video cases. So what I would say is the key thing is really to following through and linking then the use of either a written case or a video case to assessment. I have been using a platform called Edpuzzle, which allows you to kind of assess students using an embedded video of your choice. Although it's not fantastically sophisticated in terms of assessment, the types of questions you're able to ask, and the marking rubric, it does allow you to actually assess students and link it to your assessments. On the negative side, I will also say that many lecturers have overnight had to become part-time movie directors. And from a student point of perspective, students are sometimes very, very critical of the quality of this video cases. Particularly if we look at it from the student's point of view, there's so many competitors out there. There's TED Talks, there's professional people, consultants, and so on. There's a whole industry behind making really engaging, interactive cases. And sometimes they do have the competitive edge. And as Andrea pointed out, using video cases is not just using a different mode of engaging with students, but it requires a fundamentally different teaching and learning philosophy that does require that investment of time. And I'll stop at this point in case we have any further questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I think we are close to the end. We have 2 minutes left, I think. So if there are any questions from participants, please type them in the Q&A box so we can still answer them. Otherwise, yeah, we will end with some quotes as food for thought. So Nukhet, perhaps you can give your end position.
Yes, I would just say if a picture is worth 1,000 words, imagine what a video case would be worth, because in 20 minutes you have a lot of images. I'll stop there, but I think we've got another 15 minutes. Whole duration was 75 minutes.
No, I think we have 2 more minutes.
Right, fine.
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Okay. Perhaps Andrea?
Yeah, just final thoughts actually. Are we giving wrong message with the videos? Are we saying it's not okay to read and just go and watch videos? Shouldn't we as a teacher making them enjoy reading again? Because if we give them the love of reading, actually they will become their own teachers. And for the end, I would really invite everybody to think about it, about the Frederick Douglass quotation. Once you learn to read, you will be forever free. And of course, just to provoke you again, how to make our lectures better.
Yes, thank you very much. Perhaps in the last minute, I'll try to wrap it up. I think it's true that current day students are actually more video prone, and we should not, negate that. We should not ignore that. It's of course also true that we should not go along with this entirely. They still have other skills and competences to learn. So I think that texts and written things can also be used. But all in all, I think it's a nice combo to have written and video cases